What if the person who vowed to protect your dignity became the reason you lost it in front of everyone you trusted? That realization didn't come slowly. It exploded over cheesecake and Cabernet. I've always been the quiet one in our marriage. The thoughtful engineer who calculates stress points in buildings while my wife, Jenna, calculates the perfect quip to make a room erupt with laughter. That Saturday night in our Crestfield home, a comfortable suburban neighborhood outside Seattle, was supposed to be just another dinner party. 4 couples, longtime friends from college, work, and Jenna's yoga circle. Nothing extraordinary. I spent the afternoon cooking, as usual. Jenna always insists I'm better at it, though what she really means is she prefers orchestrating the social scene while I handle the backstage work. I don't mind. After 6 years of marriage, we've fallen into these roles like water finding its path downhill. Miles, did you chill the white wine enough? Jenna called from upstairs, where she was getting ready. Her voice carried that edge of excitement it always did before hosting. She'd been promoted at her beauty brand marketing job last month, and lately she seemed to glow with extra attention, constantly performing even when it was just us. Already in the ice bucket, I replied, arranging the last of the catered charcuterie. Soft indie music filtered through our living room speakers as the doorbell rang. The evening started smoothly enough. Cocktails flowed, conversation drifted from parenting tips to summer travel plans to whatever was trending on TikTok. Jenna dominated as always, her laughter filling our dining room as she touched arms, locked eyes, and made everyone feel like they were the most fascinating person alive, until she moved to the next one. "Miles is my silent storm," she said at one point, playfully ruffling my hair as our friends chuckled. "Still waters run deep, right, honey?" I smiled and refilled wine glasses. This was our dance. She shined, I supported. After dinner, as we gathered around the coffee table with dessert plates balanced on knees, something shifted. Kevin, always the boundary pusher after a few drinks, brought up marriage routines and bedroom boredom. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Light confessions emerged, mostly silly and safe. Alicia admitted to falling asleep during a massage. Kevin joked about dozing off mid-act once, triggering a burst of genuine laughter. Then Jenna leaned forward, wine glass dangling between her fingers, eyes bright with mischief. "Oh, you want performance issues? Let me tell you about Tuesday night." The room went silent. My chest tightened. "So, there we are," she continued, her voice pitched for maximum theatrical effect. "Miles is trying so hard, right? But nothing's happening downstairs." She made a wilting gesture with her finger. Our friend's eyes widened. What happened next plays in my memory like a slow-motion car crash. Jenna launched into a full comedic routine about my recent erectile difficulty. She did voices, reenacted my expressions, mimicked sounds I supposedly made. She slapped the table for emphasis. 5 minutes, guys, not a marathon, and he was still winded. Our friends were howling now. Some looked uncomfortable but too entertained to intervene. I sat perfectly still, feeling strangely hollow. Not embarrassed, not angry, just empty. I watched Jenna watching everyone laugh, a familiar glint of satisfaction in her eyes, the applause she craved. When she finally glanced my way, she didn't flinch. No guilt, no remorse, just the high of being the center of attention. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. She didn't just share a private moment. She shattered something between us. After 2 minutes of silence, I smiled, sipped my wine, and calmly responded, "Should I tell them about your grooming art project, or that thing you do that sounds like a dying vacuum?" The table froze. Jenna's face drained of color. "That's different," she stammered. "I was being funny." "So am I," I replied evenly. Hilarious how quickly the room changes when the spotlight shifts. The evening collapsed after that. Awkward laughter gave way to silence. Guests mumbled excuses and gathered coats. One woman whispered urgently to her husband and pulled him toward the door. Kevin lingered behind, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Man, that was rough. You all right?" he asked quietly. "I'm learning a lot tonight," I answered. After everyone left, Jenna cleaned up furiously, slamming plates into the dishwasher, saying nothing. When I offered to help, she turned her back on me. We went to bed in silence. No apology, no reflection from her. Just before midnight, she muttered, "You humiliated me. That wasn't okay," and walked out of our bedroom. That night, lying awake alone, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question I never thought I'd need to ask. What kind of woman am I really married to? When someone slices your dignity open in public, you expect them to feel at least a twinge of regret. What you don't expect is them doubling down for applause. I woke up on the living room couch Sunday morning, a crick in my neck and the taste of last night's Cabernet still lingering on my tongue. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Jenna's car was gone from the driveway. She'd left early for yoga class without a word. The kitchen gleamed with an almost clinical perfection. Every surface wiped down, every glass put away, as if she'd tried to sanitize away the night before. Coffee was made but untouched. No note. My phone buzzed with a text from Trey. "Heard from Kevin. Jesus, man. You all right?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Instagram, where a notification showed Jenna had been tagged in a story. My thumb hovered over it for a moment before I tapped. Some men are just too sensitive. You know what I mean, ladies? Married life. Funny Friday. Oops. The post had 83 views already. Comments flooded in beneath it. "Girl, you are wild, Elmo. Men can't take jokes these days, far. Tell us the vacuum cleaner one again." My stomach clenched. This wasn't damage control. This wasn't regret. She was relishing it, turning our private humiliation into public sport. Something compelled me to keep scrolling through her timeline. I'd always glanced at her social media, but never really studied it. Now I saw posts I'd somehow missed or ignored. A cooking fail from last Christmas. Me spilling pasta sauce. Chef Ramsay would faint. 37 likes. A post from 7 months ago. Trying to teach your man how to fold laundry is like decoding ancient scrolls. Her girlfriends had commented underneath, mocking me further. I scrolled further, a coldness spreading through my chest. There it was, a Facebook memory from October, a photo from another dinner party. "He says therapy is for the weak, but trust me, he needs it more than anyone." I'd never seen this post before. 170 likes. Dozens of comments. I had told her once after a few drinks that my father had mocked me for wanting to see a counselor after my parents' divorce. That therapy was for weak men who couldn't handle their problems. It was a painful memory, a wound I'd shared with my wife in confidence, and she'd turned it into content. My hands trembling slightly, I followed a username pattern I recognized to Reddit. Jenna wasn't particularly creative with her online identities. She reused variations of the same handle across platforms. What I found made me set the phone down and walk away. Posts on RR2X chromosomes and R funny marriage mocking me anonymously. One mentioned, "A guy who flinches when I touch his chest because of some weird past issue." She knew why I flinched. I'd told her about my father's temper, about the time he'd shoved me against a wall so hard I couldn't breathe, about how, 20 years later, unexpected pressure on my chest still triggered panic. I'd shared that with her on our third date, in bed, voice low, trust beginning to form. It was all online now, for strangers to laugh at. The front door opened at 11:30. Jenna breezed in, yoga mat under her arm, face flushed and smiling, as if last night had never happened. "Feel better today?" she asked casually, dropping her bag on the counter. "Did you post about me this morning?" I kept my voice neutral. She froze mid-motion, then shrugged. "I was venting. You embarrassed me too, remember?" "Let me see your phone." "Excuse me?" She clutched it to her chest. "Your phone, Jenna." "No way. What's wrong with you? I'm allowed to have a voice. Stop being controlling. You're allowed to betray me online for clout? Everyone shares stuff. You're paranoid." She tried to move past me to the kitchen. I stepped aside but kept my eyes on her. "I saw everything," I said quietly. "Instagram, Reddit, Facebook, even your comment about my trauma." For the first time, genuine fear flickered across her face. Not fear of losing me. Fear of being caught. "You had no right to go through my accounts," she whispered. "And you had no right to turn our life into your content farm. But here we are." She tried a different approach then, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. Sometimes I just need to vent. You don't understand the pressure I feel." "Stop," I held up my hand. "Just stop performing for 5 minutes. I can't tell what's real with you anymore." That night, after Jenna had retreated to our bedroom, I sat in my home office with the door locked. I began methodically copying files, screenshots, downloads, data logs of every post where she'd used me as material. I started writing a timeline of incidents, gathering proof, creating a Google Drive folder titled Closure. I researched divorce law in Washington state, digital defamation cases, emotional abuse documentation. My engineer's mind kicked into analytical gear, treating this like any other structural problem that needed solving. For the first time, I admitted to myself, this wasn't just a misstep at a dinner party. This was who Jenna had become, or maybe who she'd always been. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as raw material for likes and comments. I thought about how many times she'd joked about my lack of ambition, my dad bod, my boring personality. How many times I'd brushed it off to avoid conflict. How I'd slowly made myself smaller to avoid becoming her next punchline. That night, around 3 a.m., I renamed the Drive folder from Closure to Exit Plan. The next morning, Jenna tried to act like nothing had happened. She made breakfast, my favorite French toast with cinnamon, and chatted about her upcoming work week. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen what I'd seen, I might have believed it. "We should plan a getaway," she suggested, pouring more coffee. "Just us. Reconnect." I nodded non-committally, watching her face. She was relieved by my apparent acquiescence, mistaking my calm for forgiveness. "Great," she continued, scrolling through her phone. "I'll look at some options for next weekend." As she walked upstairs to shower, her phone pinged on the counter. A notification from her friend Lisa. "OMG, that post about Miles last night was savage. You're my hero." I stared at the message preview until it faded from the screen. Then I picked up my own phone and made a call I'd never imagined making. "I'd like to schedule a consultation," I told the receptionist at Holloway & Byrne, attorneys at law, "as soon as possible." "Reason for consultation?" the woman asked professionally. I glanced toward the stairs, where I could hear the shower running and Jenna humming to herself. "Divorce," I said. "I need to discuss divorce." She thought I was sulking in silence. I was silently preparing a war room. Monday morning, I woke before my alarm. Jenna was already gone. Another early yoga class, or maybe just avoiding the heavy silence that had settled between us. For the first time in over 2 years, I called in sick to work. My boss sounded surprised, but didn't question it. I had enough sick days accumulated to take a month off if needed. I wasn't angry anymore. That's what surprised me most. I felt clear, analytical, focused, like when I'm solving a complex structural problem that requires absolute precision. I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, "Best Divorce Attorneys for Emotional Abuse, Washington State." 3 hours of research later, I had a name. Patricia Holloway, 52 years old according to her firm bio. Sharp eyes behind stylish glasses, known for handling high-conflict divorces with tact and precision. Holloway & Byrne had 5-star ratings, a discreet staff, and offered free initial consultations. I called and secured a same-day appointment. At 1 o'clock, I drove into downtown Redmond with a folder labeled simply Jenna on the passenger seat. Inside were printouts of her most egregious posts, screenshots, and a timeline I'd spent the morning creating. Patricia Holloway's office was on the 10th floor of a glass building overlooking a small park. Her assistant led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and offered me water or coffee. I declined both. Patricia herself entered precisely at 1:15. She wore a charcoal suit, minimal jewelry, and carried a yellow legal pad. No wedding ring, I noticed. "Mr. Warner," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm. Tell me why you're here. For the next 45 minutes, I laid out everything. The dinner party, the mocking posts, the betrayal of trust, the gaslighting. Patricia listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she asked sharp questions. Any physical abuse? No. Any financial entanglement she controls? We have joint accounts, but I handle most of the finances. Any third parties she's confiding in or triangulating you with? Her sister knows everything, maybe her mother. She nodded. Children? No. She wasn't ready. Property? House is co-owned, some retirement accounts, 2 cars, joint debt from the house renovation last year. Patricia set down her pen and looked at me directly. Mr. Warner, this is a marriage that can be cleanly exited, but you'll need documentation and discipline. For the next hour, she outlined a game plan. Legal options. Washington being a no-fault state meant I didn't need to prove Jenna's emotional abuse. But documenting it would help with negotiating the settlement. What counts as emotional abuse under court perception? Public humiliation, consistent undermining, using personal information as ammunition. Dangers of social media slander. If Jenna realized I was leaving, she might escalate her online narrative, painting herself as the victim. Asset protection steps. Immediate actions to secure my financial future. Patricia leaned forward. The most important thing, Mr. Warner, is this. Do not warn her. Do not argue. Document, observe, and when the time comes, deliver. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm. How long will this take? That depends on her. If she fights, months. If she realizes how much evidence you have, weeks. Patricia handed me her card with her personal cell number written on the back. Call me anytime. And Miles, you're doing the right thing. That afternoon, I put Patricia's plan into motion. I opened a new checking account in my name, only at a different bank. I froze access to our shared credit cards, citing suspicious activity with the bank. I backed up all emails, texts, social media posts, and photos into encrypted folders. I installed a voice-activated recorder in my home office, legal in Washington with one-party consent. When Jenna came home that evening, I noticed a shift in her behavior. She was unusually affectionate, offering to cook dinner, suggesting we watch my favorite sci-fi show instead of her usual reality TV preference. She wore the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas that had sat unopened until now. How was your day? She asked, stirring pasta sauce at the stove. Fine, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Just a regular Monday. You feeling better about everything? She glanced at me, gauging my reaction. I nodded slightly. I'm processing. That seemed to satisfy her. She smiled, a genuine smile, not the performative one she used in her Instagram stories. I ordered that Thai takeout you love for tomorrow. Thought we could use a treat. Over the next few days, Jenna's affection campaign intensified. She offered to cook every night. She ordered my favorite foods without prompting. She suggested a weekend getaway to Oregon to reconnect. She wore lingerie she hadn't touched in months. I played along, calm, distant, but polite. I could see the relief in her eyes as she mistakenly believed I was cooling down, that this storm would pass like others had before. In truth, I was mentally checking off items from Patricia's marriage exit checklist while beginning a daily journal. Day 1. Jenna apologized by bringing home Thai food and acting like I imagined everything. Still no direct remorse. Day 2. She posted a coupley selfie. Caption: Marriages go through storms. Strong ones sail through. Public manipulation continues. Day 3. Tried to initiate sex. When I declined, she accused me of punishing her. Classic Darvo technique according to the resources Patricia sent. I recorded her emotional swings. How she pivoted from overly sweet to cold if I didn't reciprocate in the way she expected. How she watched me when she thought I wasn't looking, calculating her next move. On Friday evening, 1 week after the dinner party, the facade cracked. We were sitting on the couch pretending to watch a movie when Jenna accidentally brought up the dinner party again. Lisa texted me today, she said casually. She and Mark want to have us over next weekend. Guess the dinner drama didn't scare them off. She laughed lightly. I said nothing. She nudged my arm. Come on, it wasn't that bad. You're still mad about that? I turned to look at her, my face expressionless. For the first time since I'd known her, Jenna flinched. What? She asked, her voice small. I shook my head and stood up. I'm going to bed. Later that night, she tried seduction, slipping into the bedroom wearing nothing but one of my dress shirts. I turned her down gently but firmly. Are you punishing me? She demanded, eyes flashing. Because that's emotionally manipulative, Miles. I'm tired, I replied. That's all. Bullshit, she spat. You're being petty and childish. It was a joke, Miles. A joke. If you can't handle a little teasing, then maybe you should... I didn't hear the rest. I walked calmly to the guest bedroom, locked the door behind me, and sent Patricia a one-line email from my secure account. Prepare the initial filing. I want out. Some people say divorce is slow and agonizing. Mine was swift, because I'd already been grieving a marriage that died months before I filed. Patricia worked faster than I expected. By Friday evening, exactly 2 weeks after the dinner party that had cracked open my life, I had the manila envelope in my messenger bag. Holloway, filing, was written in neat black letters across the front. Jenna had spent the day cleaning the house and preparing an elaborate dinner, chicken parmesan, my favorite. The kitchen smelled like forgiveness, but I smelled manipulation. Wine? She asked, holding up a bottle of the Cabernet we'd served at our wedding. Her smile was hopeful, cautious. Sure, I said, watching her pour. We ate dinner with forced conversation about her day at work, a new client her team had landed, office politics. I nodded at the right moments, asked appropriate questions. From the outside, we probably looked like any other couple on a Friday night. After dinner, she suggested watching a new romantic comedy that had just hit Netflix. It's supposed to be really good, she said, already reaching for the remote. Actually, I said, can we talk first? Surprise flickered across her face, then nervousness. Sure, what's up? I didn't join her on the couch. Instead, I sat in the armchair across the coffee table from her. The distance wasn't just physical. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past 2 weeks, I began. I know, she interrupted. And I've been giving you space. I think we're turning a corner though, right? Her eyes searched mine for confirmation. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. For a moment, I just held it, feeling its weight. Not just the paper inside, but what it represented. Then I slid it across the coffee table to her. These are divorce papers. I'll be filing on Monday. Jenna laughed, a short, nervous sound. You're kidding, right? She didn't touch the envelope. I shook my head. No, I'm not. Over a joke? Her voice rose slightly. You're actually filing for divorce over one stupid joke? It wasn't one joke, Jenna. It was a pattern. A pattern I finally saw clearly. She stared at me, then at the envelope, then back at me. Her face cycled through emotions, disbelief, shock, anger. You're throwing away 6 years because you're insecure? She demanded. I'm ending 6 years because I finally understand that you don't respect me, I replied calmly. You don't value my privacy or my dignity. You use me as material. That's ridiculous. She stood up, pacing now. Everyone shares things about their partners. Everyone vents. That's normal. Publicly humiliating me for likes isn't venting. It's cruel. We can do therapy, she countered, switching tactics. I'll delete everything, all the posts. I'll be more careful about what I share. I shook my head. It's too late. Her eyes narrowed then. What kind of man walks out over a stupid story? It's pathetic, Miles. Really pathetic. I'd anticipated this. Patricia had warned me the gloves would come off when Jenna realized I was serious. I stayed calm, kept my voice level. This isn't about one night or one story, Jenna. This is about you using me as a prop, for your jokes, your followers, your ego. That's not fair, she snapped. Neither is what you did to me for the last 2 years. This wasn't a slip-up. It was your pattern. Her face hardened. If you file these papers, I'll fight. I'll fight dirty. You know I will. This was the moment Patricia had prepared me for. I looked Jenna directly in the eyes. I have screenshots of every post where you mocked me publicly. I have audio recordings of you bragging to your sister about using me for content. I have the Reddit threads linked to your personal email. I have bank records showing personal spending from our joint savings. With each item I listed, Jenna's face grew paler. By the end, she was speechless, something I'd rarely witnessed in our marriage. "How long have you been planning this?" she whispered finally. "Since I saw your posts. Since I realized you've been treating our marriage like an open mic night." She sank back onto the couch, the fight draining out of her. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. Real tears. Not the performative ones she'd used so effectively in the past. "Please, Miles, I'll change. Just give me a chance." She reached for my hand across the coffee table. I pulled back gently. "You didn't care how I felt when you were laughing," I said softly. "You only care now that there are consequences." "I can post an apology," she offered desperately. "Publicly. Say it was my fault. Tell everyone I was wrong." "I don't need your apology. I need peace." She stared at the envelope, finally picking it up with trembling fingers but not opening it. "How long have you been talking to lawyers?" "Since Monday after the dinner party. You thought I was sulking." "I was building a life without you." Something shifted in her expression then. A realization that I wasn't bluffing, wasn't negotiating, wasn't playing a game to get her attention. "Where will you go?" she asked, her voice small. "I've rented an apartment downtown. I'm moving out tonight." I stood up and retrieved the suitcase I'd packed that morning and hidden in my car while she was at work. "My lawyer will contact yours next week to discuss the house and other assets." Miles were... Wait. She stood up, tears flowing freely now. "We can't end like this. 6 years can't end like this." I paused at the door, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. "It already did, Jenna. It ended when you decided my humiliation was worth a few laughs." "I love you," she said, the words sounding hollow even to my ears. "Maybe you do," I replied, "but not enough to protect me, not enough to keep some things sacred." I opened the front door, the cool evening air washing over me. Behind me, our house, the one we'd chosen together, painted together, filled with memories, suddenly felt like a museum of a life that no longer existed. "I'll be back next weekend for more of my things," I said. "Please don't be here when I come." As I stepped outside, I realized something profound. I wasn't walking away from my marriage. I was walking back to myself. The apartment I'd rented was small but clean, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Redmond. Patricia had recommended it. One of her former clients owned the building and often had units available for people in transition. That night, I sat on the bare mattress on the floor, the only furniture I'd had time to arrange, and felt the weight of the past 2 weeks. I hadn't cried yet. Part of me wondered if I would, if I should. My phone buzzed relentlessly with texts from Jenna. "Please come home. We can fix this. You're overreacting. I need you. Don't do this to us." I turned it off and placed it on the windowsill, then lay back on the mattress and stared at the unfamiliar ceiling. For the first time in years, I was completely alone. No one watching. No one judging. No one waiting to turn my private moments into public entertainment. The silence was deafening at first. Then, gradually, it became something else entirely. It became peace. She built her entire identity on attention. So when the crowd turned on her, she had no idea how to survive the silence. My first morning in the new apartment, I woke to sunlight streaming through blinds I hadn't closed. For a disorienting moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The divorce papers, Jenna's tears, my quiet exit. I felt a strange lightness, like I'd shed a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. That week, I established new routines. Early morning runs through downtown Redmond, a gym membership at a place close to my office, a cooking class on Wednesday nights, something I'd always enjoyed but had relegated to simple family meals at Jenna's insistence. I wasn't lonely. I was liberated. At work, I kept things professional. When colleagues noticed my missing wedding ring, I offered a simple explanation. Jenna and I are separating. No details, no drama. Most respected my privacy. On Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. "Bro, check Facebook, she's wildin'." I hesitated before logging into an account I hadn't touched in days. There it was at the top of my feed, a long emotional post from Jenna. Sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who abandon us over a simple misunderstanding. After 6 years of supporting a husband who was emotionally unavailable, I'm learning the hard way that some men would rather walk away than do the work. Her narcissist ex. Gaslight survivor. Just wants peace. The post had dozens of comments, some supporting her, others questioning. As I scrolled through, something unexpected happened. Natalie, one of our mutual friends from the dinner party, had commented, "Wait, wasn't this the dinner where you mocked his ED?" Before Jenna could respond, Jared jumped in. "I remember the story. We were there. It wasn't funny. It was cruel." Another friend added, "You posted about it the next day like it was hilarious." My phone rang. It was Patricia. "Have you seen your wife's post?" she asked without preamble. "Just now." "Don't respond. Let me repeat that. Do not engage. She's trying to bait you into a public argument to support her narrative." "I wasn't planning to," I assured her. "Good, because something interesting is happening. Your friends are doing the talking for you." She was right. Throughout the day, more comments appeared on Jenna's post. Not all were against her. Some of her colleagues and newer friends rallied to her defense. But enough people who had witnessed her behavior firsthand were speaking up. That evening, my email pinged with a message from an anonymous account. "Is this you?" with a link to a Reddit thread. The post on R True Off My Chest was titled, "My wife mocked my private issues in front of our friends." I filed for divorce. It included anonymous screenshots with identifying details blurred, but I recognized the dinner party story immediately. The post had thousands of upvotes and comments ranging from support to outrage. A private message followed from the same anonymous account. "If this is you, you're not alone. Same thing happened to me. Stay strong, brother." I never confirmed whether the post was about me or just an eerie coincidence. I didn't need to. The point was made. Stories like mine weren't unique. The next day, Trey pulled me aside after a meeting. "Heard something you should know," he said quietly. "Jenna's in trouble at work." Apparently, one of her boss's wife had seen a story Jenna posted months ago mocking her husband's baldness at a company event. The wife had sent screenshots to HR. "They've opened an internal review," Trey continued. "Something about public disparagement of clients and colleagues. She's been removed from the Kendall account." I felt no satisfaction at this news. Just a hollow confirmation that the pattern I'd escaped had been even wider than I knew. Patricia advised against any public response. "Let the truth do the talking," she counseled during our weekly check-in. "Stay above the fray. Focus on rebuilding." And I did. I deleted my personal social accounts. I threw myself into work projects. I started outlining an article I had no intention of publishing. "When the joke is you, emotional abuse as entertainment." 2 weeks after I moved out, the intercom in my apartment building buzzed. The security guard's voice crackled through. "Mr. Warner, there's a Jenna Warner here to see you. Says she's your wife." My heart raced. Did she say what she wants? "Just that she needs to talk to you. Says it's important." I considered refusing. Patricia would advise against seeing her without legal representation present, but something in me needed closure. "Send her up," I said finally. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. The poised, camera-ready woman I'd lived with for 6 years looked disheveled. hair pulled back carelessly, eyes red-rimmed from crying, wearing a sweatshirt I'd never seen before. "Please," she said, her voice hoarse. "Can we talk? Just 10 minutes." I stepped into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed behind me. I didn't invite her in. "What do you need, Jenna?" She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly small in the wide corridor. "I've lost everything," she whispered. "Friends aren't returning my calls. HR put me on administrative leave. My sister says I need therapy." She looked up at me. "All because of a few stupid jokes." "No," I corrected gently. "Because of a pattern of behavior. Because of choices you made repeatedly." "I didn't know it would go this far," she insisted. "I didn't think—" "That's the problem. You didn't think about how your actions affected me. You only started caring when they affected you." She wiped at her eyes. "I'll take everything down. I'll make a statement. We can fix this." I leaned against the wall, feeling strangely calm. "There's no we left to fix, Jenna. I'm not your PR project. I'm not your punchline. And I'm not your backup plan. But 6 years were good until they weren't. I'm sorry you're hurting, but I can't help you through this." Her face crumpled, and she began sobbing uncontrollably. The sound echoed through the empty hallway. Part of me, the part that had loved her for years, wanted to comfort her, but I knew that would only restart a cycle I needed to break. "Do you miss me at all?" she asked between sobs. "Even a little." I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt the truth rise to my lips. "I miss who I thought you were," I said softly, and I turned, walked inside, and closed the door. That night, I sat on my new couch, delivered that morning, and realized something. I hadn't just left Jenna. I'd left behind a version of myself I no longer recognized. The man who shrank to avoid becoming content. The man who laughed at his own expense to keep peace. The man who confused loyalty with martyrdom. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Court date set for initial hearing. 3 weeks from Tuesday. I sent back a simple thank you and set the phone aside. Outside my window, Redmond's lights twinkled against the darkening sky. Tomorrow I'd wake up early again. Go for my run. Head to work. Continue building this new life, brick by brick. The path ahead wasn't clear yet, but for the first time in years, it was truly mine. Sometimes you don't win by getting even. You win by getting free. 3 months after that night in my apartment hallway, I sat in Patricia Holloway's office, signing the final divorce papers. The process had been quicker than expected. Jenna initially contested, hiring her own lawyer and threatening to drag things out. But when Patricia presented the digital trail, the public posts, Reddit archives, bank transfers, Jenna folded. The settlement was straightforward. The house sold. Proceeds split 50-50. Joint debts divided fairly. No alimony. Jenna forfeited claims after discovering how strong the evidence was. As I signed the last document, Patricia studied me with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "you handled this with rare grace. Most clients come in broken. You came in ready." I smiled faintly. I had 6 years of practice being invisible. This was me reclaiming space. Patricia nodded, understanding in her eyes. "What will you do now?" "Live," I said simply. And I meant it. Through mutual friends, I heard that Jenna had quietly left her job. Gossip within her industry had spread too far for damage control. People she once called friends unfollowed her online. A rumor circulated that she was trying to freelance but struggling to find clients who would take the risk. I took no pleasure in her downfall. That surprised some people who knew our story. But revenge had never been my goal. Peace had. With the divorce finalized, I moved into a permanent loft near Lake Washington. Minimalist, clean, full of light. I joined a men's support group for emotional abuse survivors. Sharing my story anonymously helped others recognize patterns in their own relationships. I began publishing a blog series under the pseudonym M.R. Warner. Respect versus Performance in Marriage. Humor as a Weapon. Why silence was my revenge. One post got shared by a prominent therapist on Twitter. This man's clarity is breathtaking. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Kevin and Natalie at the local farmers market. Their friendly waves turned into an invitation to dinner the following weekend. Over pasta and wine at their dining table, so reminiscent of that fateful night, yet completely different. Natalie leaned forward. "We didn't speak up that night," she said quietly. "But we saw it, and we talk about it still." Kevin nodded. "You weren't weak, Miles. You were patient. You were careful. That was strength." I appreciated their words, but I no longer needed external validation. The man I had become wasn't defined by his marriage or its ending. Nearly a year after I'd moved out, an email arrived from Jenna. Subject: foreclosure. She wrote that she was in therapy, realizing now how she'd used me for validation. She didn't know how broken she was until no one clapped anymore. She ended with, "I don't expect a reply, but thank you for walking away. It made me face who I am." I didn't respond. But that night, I wrote a final blog entry. Sometimes leaving isn't the hardest part. It's staying gone that takes strength. I posted it and logged out for good. The blog had served its purpose, for me and for others who needed to hear that they weren't alone. Months later, at a bookstore talk on trauma recovery, I met a woman named Nora, a therapist who specialized in helping emotional abuse survivors. As we chatted over coffee afterward, she mentioned a Reddit thread that had helped one of her clients recognize his own situation. "I commented supportively on it," she said. "Never knew who wrote it, of course." I smiled, recognizing the thread she meant, but saying nothing. We talked until the bookstore closed, then again at the next month's event. No fireworks, just a calm, mutual understanding. "I read your words back then," she told me one evening as we walked along the lake. "I didn't know they'd come from someone who looked like you." "What did you expect?" I asked. "Someone more broken, I guess." I looked out at the water, reflecting the sunset in shades of orange and gold. I was, for a while. A year and a half after the divorce, I hiked alone one Sunday, my new tradition, reaching a cliffside overlook. I took a deep breath and smiled to myself. The view was spectacular, but what I felt inside was even better. Jenna had ended our marriage by trying to make the private public. I had saved myself by making it private again, by reclaiming my dignity, by stepping off stage. She built a world where applause mattered more than intimacy. I left that stage, and I've never looked back.